All right, guys, just a reminder, today we are giving away this brand new Samsung 10-inch Galaxy iPad tablet. We will have a test question at the end of this, so please stay tuned and check us out. All right, guys, Angelo Christian with Real Estate Insider got a real special guest today, Adam with Apartments of Houston. What's up, brother?
Hey,
man, how are you? Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
This entrepreneur, he's in here visiting us today, talking about a lot of different things. First thing, I know that you're on the apartment side. Mm-hmm. You're an entrepreneur, but you're also a listing agent, and you flip properties and you do things with apartments. And I'm on the mortgage side, and we're a bank, and we make loans to people. And so, and I really push home ownership.
Yes.
And we were just discussing this. And so, my biggest question to you is, with my following, one of the big things we talk about is, hey, you got to own a house.
Yes.
Investing in real estate, it's the smartest thing. Don't waste your money on rent. And so, the first question I have for you is, why would anybody want to rent? If we could get them into a house with no money down.
Mm-hmm. So one of my biggest things and philosophies, and for you being in the mortgage space, is realizing that people have the access to the capital to basically go out and purchase a home. You said you had zero down options. Mm-hmm. So really, apart from living in it, just from an investment standpoint, if you have the access to it, why not go out purchase that house if you can lease it out? You have a source of income coming in mm-hmm. out of that. So I think really from that point of base, I think it's critical that somebody even does that just as one of their things in their portfolio.
Okay.
And then if they want to live in it, that's great. So it just really comes down to your life goals. If you're going to live in that city, then definitely do it. If you're in a transitioning in life, say you're a millennial, mm-hmm. then maybe you're not going to stay there, but at least purchase a home, lease it out, so you have an investment, something to go off of.
Okay. So basically, what you're saying is that use that loan program, that opportunity, to at least get your foot in the door and own real estate, and then you can choose to lease it out or do something else later on with it.
Well, you have to. I mean, historically, if you look at U.S. rates, I'm from Mexico City.
Okay.
So, about 6 months ago, we're looking at purchasing another apartment in Mexico, my family, and we're looking at it, and guess what the interest rate is?
What is it, 20?
It's like 13.5 base rate.
Okay.
Right? And we haven't lived in Mexico City for a very long time, so for us, it'd be an astronomical sum. So we come to the U.S. and you hear 4, 4.5, 5, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We laugh at it because it's such cheap capital that you're able to basically own property.
Right. So, what are you? And obviously, we're in Houston, and let's say that because you're also an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
What are let's say somebody's wanting to start their own business, kind of get things going, whether it's apartment complexes, starting a business. Do you have any tips for entrepreneurs out there? Because we have a lot of people that are trying to build something mm-hmm. and they don't know really what to do. They don't have a mentor.
Gotcha.
So what would do you have like a 5-step process, or how did you get going?
So one of the things, and I believe this a lot, John DeMartini always says, you have your core values, and off of your core values, you need to look at what do you do naturally. So when you wake up without anybody telling you what to do, what do you do? Uh-huh. For me, for example, it's learning. It's wanting to make things. So off of that, I realized, hey, well, I like learning about this. I like learning about that. And it ended up being real estate.
Okay.
Right? Making things. So I like homes. I like, the apartment complexes. I like seeing how they're made, looking at the plans. Mm-hmm. So you do what you're naturally attracted to.
Mm-hmm. So that's like your Orlarian destiny. Have you heard of that? Your Orlarian mm-hmm. destiny? Okay. It was one of the things that they talk about is like, what do you talk about on a Saturday night? Mm-hmm. What do your enemies say that you're good at?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think it's very true that what you're saying is don't force it. Mm-mm. What do you have an inherent passion or interest in?
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're great at it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, with my family, we come from a family of engineers. I'm third generation. Well, I didn't go into become an engineer, but for third generation, we've owned factories.
Okay.
And I could literally go into a car, start taking it apart, and I'm great. I can take the car apart, put it back together, and it runs.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't drive me. I don't wake up and say, hey, on the other sense, because I do know I have that skill set, I realized that I'm able to apply that into the other things that I really do like, doing. For example, when we did the locating company, sitting there, realizing, hey, this is the sales pipeline that we have to put into place for all of our salespeople, and this is how they execute, each in different steps. So the engine is still there. The only thing that's changing is the form, the actual physical form of it.
Okay, so let's just so we can set the tone a little bit. So, what businesses have you started? Let's let everyone know. Like, what do you do? Like, what's the business, the apartment locating that you've done?
So, the apartment locating space, pretty much what we do is we work with the management companies and we do the marketing for them. They don't pay us for this at all. We go out, we market to the city. You guys on Apartments Houston, hey guys. And what we do from that point is we put out videos, content. The people contact us. And then from there, we basically shop the apartments for them. We get them latest specials, availability, deals into town. And really, and more than selling them an apartment, it's finding what fits their need.
Okay.
And then from there, we actually tour them. So it's more of a concierge service. We take them, and then once the person actually leases the apartment, the management company goes out and basically pays us for, bringing in that client.
Right. And so you started that business. So basically, the first thing that you're saying as a keys to success as an entrepreneur is do something that you're really good at, that you have a high interest in. Is there anything else that you would...
Value. So, the marketplace always rewards value. Jim Rohn always says it. If you're not making enough money, then the reality is you're not doing something that's valuable in that space. So you have to ask yourself, what can I do that either nobody else is doing or that nobody else is doing to the caliber that I could basically come in, fulfill that, and then if I do it correctly, the marketplace will reward it.
So adding a significant amount of value. So you're saying that the marketplace will tell you if you've added enough by your compensation.
Exactly. Meaning people are attracted to it. There's results. The reality is locating the last couple of years has been slowing down in the city. But we realize it's the way that their marketing is not effective.
Okay.
And we also saw it from the perspective from the management companies, where the management companies are not putting in the work to market. Their older companies have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're used to the old ways of marketing, and they're not catching up to basically what we're doing today. So they left a gap where we're able to come in and we're able to grow in that gap.
And you're leveraging that with social media?
Yes.
Okay, and they're not really, they're like the dinosaur, they're not really...
No, it's incredible because you could sit in there and you can look at anything from, let's say, basic social media to even SEO optimization, the way they build out their websites, it's completely dysfunctional. Even their CRMs, everything that they have is very, very antiquated, where they're just more focused on the actual property than focusing on how can I basically, capture, number one, really high caliber salespeople, and two, how can I take care of my customers in that sense and, go market.
Right. Now, one thing on value that you talked about, because there's, and kind of what I've studied, that there's two different types of value. So you have the value creation.
Yes.
But then you actually have the capture of value, right? The monetization. Look at, for example, Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yes.
They've created a lot of value, but they haven't been able to capture in terms of ROI, right?
Yeah.
They make very little money.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So how would you, let's say that you're doing something that's unique and different, but if you can't capture that value, then what good is it?
You're doing a great cause for humanity.
Okay.
But from an investment standpoint.
So I guess you would agree that you'd have to be able to monetize as well.
Yes.
Because you can create a lot of value, right? But if you're not capturing, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. There has to be a healthy balance, meaning it's not about always making the money, but in order to go out and be able to help people, you do have to have you have to have a baseline, something that you can rely on to go out and do those activities. If it's giving back to the community, helping other people, or creating a great valuable service, but it still has to make money to operate on.
Right. You have to have a margin. Yeah, exactly.
So, it's kind of like Twitter almost shut down. Was it 2-3 times?
Oh yeah,
because of
Well, no, that's one thing that several years ago I was looking at with like Twitter and like LinkedIn. And I mean, LinkedIn is a phenomenal, Reid Hoffman, and just it's brilliant. But they weren't ever really able to, compete with Facebook.
Yeah.
And I think that's one reason why I think Microsoft bought them out. Because they try many different things selling. Have you seen how there's a little banner on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
They do leads and stuff like that. But they just weren't able to really ever, I think, dominate that space. And so.
I think the issue with LinkedIn, I think it's great for a business standpoint, but the problem is you always say, oh, I can't post this on LinkedIn, but I can post it here.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody who's on it always feels I'm restricted in some way or form.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, and because of that, they've self-imposed that restriction on them through the platform, and it's what's limiting the growth.
No, there's a lot of things. I just I want this one thing that I've seen, like, because I've spinned off a few different businesses, and some of them, like, we've created value, but we weren't able to. The numbers, ROI wasn't there. It just didn't make sense to keep pushing it. So, what else besides value? What else would you say is some key ingredients to launching your own business?
Team. You have to have the right people. I think one of the successes that we've had is having the right team members, having Oscar, my partner, and also our social media.
Okay, so you do have a partner.
Yes.
Okay.
For Apartments Houston. Yes.
Yeah.
And basically having all the pieces in place, because you can't make it on your own ever.
Have you read that book, Working Together?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you know Michael Eisner, the past CEO of Disney. Yeah, he wrote that book, and he said that basically that every great company, like you look at Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, and so it made me think. I think it's really true. You have to have a really good team. Who do you, besides your business partner, who else is an integral part of your team?
I think our social media team, because they're basically we're able to interact with our people on site, salespeople that we have. They're critical because every single person that works on your team is not only a representation of your company, but of also the values that you're doing in that company culture that you're basically having. And everybody has to be the par. I think I really believe in that, because if one person's off, it sets everything off.
Okay, so on that, because that's a huge thing, how do you guys filter through, have you ever had a bad apple on your team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Several.
Okay. How do you filter through to, do you have some type of recruiting or hiring process, or like picking Oscar for your partner? I mean, was there a checklist, or how did you?
So for example, Oscar as a partner, the reason we work together, it's number one, it has to be a trust factor. Can I really trust that person? Do they trust me? What's their level of integrity? If it's off, one way, it cannot be the right person. And also realizing, where are they in their stages in life and in their stages in business, and do they have different sets of values and activities that complements the things that you might not be the greatest at? How does that balance out?
Okay.
So that it's completely critical. And the other thing is also what I mean by trust. It's not so much that hey, here's $1,000 on the table and take it. No, that's one part. Part two is also the trust in knowing that they're going to go out and they're self-driven, they're self-motivated. Like, I don't have to call Oscar to see if he's doing something. Like, I already know that he's already called a client today, that he's at a property, that he produced a video, that he's here, and vice versa. He knows that I went and I landed a deal, I'm with a client. So there's that balance. Right.
So would you say that in choosing like a business partner to consciously try to choose someone that's opposite of you?
No. There has to be similarities in the middle.
Okay.
Just not completely opposite. They have to basically have your other side, but there still has to be a shared element in the middle. Because if not, then there's too much friction, and then it turns into debate. My way, your way. So there has to be a space where you're able to compromise, so that way you can actually move forward.
Do you think that let's say that Oscar, if you had to constantly micromanage what he was doing, that you picked the wrong partner?
Yes. You don't. You can't be micromanaging. They're not your employee; they're your partner.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just because I've realized that I've hired a few hundred people, in my time, and every time I get worried about if someone's going to do something, I realize I probably hired the wrong person. You know what I mean? And so, because usually the really good people, after you teach them, the processes in the job, you could, for the most part, get out of their way.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so team, what else, anything else that you would say is a key ingredient?
So we had team, we had
value,
and then we had your internal drives. Not your internal drives, your internal values, right?
Your destiny,
your destiny.
What you love to do,
So I think that the next space is always having a wanting to grow. So you got here, that's great, but how do we make this better? How do we, So in a sense, kind of it's innovation, but it's also not falling in love with the innovation. And kind of what you asked about, hey, it's a great service, but if you get too creative, you lose that foundation. So it's always wanting to basically, how do you take it to your next level? And I think that's always critical in any business, because if you're not growing, you're dying. There's no middle place. There's always either growth or there's decay.
So you're basically with like Apartments of Houston, you're always trying to figure out how to optimize it.
Yes.
Okay.
Literally daily. It's, hey, I added a new tool for our back end. Hey, I figured out a new sales process that we can add. We added, an email campaign for this, or we built a new relationship with a management company, or we basically got new staff. Every single day, it's not about getting more sales. Yes, that's important, but how can I create more leverage, and how can I get more effective at reproducing those results consistently?
Okay. Now, there's one thing I want to ask you about. How do you know, like, because there's many different types of business models, right?
Yeah.
There's a treadmill type model. There's a front-loaded model. You talked about getting into spec homes and large sums of cash. How do you know like that? I mean, because like for example, like you got into Apartments of Houston.
Yes.
And like I got into mortgage banking. How do you know what the upside is going to be, or where it's going to cap out at? Like you're putting all this energy optimizing it. How do you know that the opportunity cost isn't so great? Like for example, you and I are over here doing this.
Yes.
And Mark Zuckerberg is making $100 million a month, and we're both both expending the same amount of energy.
Yes.
So how do you know that what you're doing with your time is the optimal thing?
You have to ask yourself, what is the number one? What are your goals, and then what are the goals for the business? And then you also have to realize what are the mechanics behind that business that you're running. And what I mean by mechanics is understanding how is the money being made, and how is it made according to your sales pipeline. Meaning every business has a lid, right? And for example, an apartment locating, for us, we'll never make $10 million in income off of it because it's physically not possible in the sense that it's a service-based business. We're capped to a regional area, which is right now Houston, and we work with XYZ complexes. There's XYZ clients. So from even starting it, I know that we can't hit that. I can hit that in another business, and that's great, but in this one I can't do
that. So you know that going into it
immediately.
What's your upside, what's your margins, Okay. So, and you're okay with whatever that outcome was, whatever that analysis was.
Yeah, because I understand that the baseline, like this business, for me and my partners, and even if an agent comes in, they can make six figures consistently.
Okay.
If it's built correctly, and if it's not systemized, then it's very volatile, extremely volatile. And a lot of people don't know this. I know we have some of our clients watching this. They don't realize that we get paid 3 to 4 months in the back end.
So you mean 3 to 4 months later?
After they move.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people don't know that. So
no, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So we play it's a high volume game. So we have to understand, like we know that no matter what, we have to hit XYZ number every single month for this business to be healthy. And it's why it's so critical that we have these systems and tools in place, because if not, this happens to a lot of real estate agents. They have one good month, one bad month.
Peaks and troughs, yeah.
We want it. Yes, it's stable growth.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. With the mortgage side, it's you pretty much get paid when the deal closes, So, but there's our volatility. There's a lot of things that we have to deal with too. Okay. So now, one thing that you had mentioned earlier, that obviously seemed like you're pivoting a little bit or complementing your core business, and you mentioned that now you've gone into construction or.
Yes, for myself, yes.
Yeah, building spec. Can you kind of talk on that a little bit? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I think you really have to see, when we talked about creating value, you're rewarded for creating value. When I look at construction, I think you're literally making something. And for making it, there's that gap. It's like basically you get to purchase properties wholesale and sell them retail, right? So that margin that you get from building a property out, you get. Now the question is, where do you build? When do you build?
Yeah.
And then, how are you financing the construction, which is completely critical. My biggest philosophy when I'm doing any business or any transaction, kind of deal, is I don't do it because I need it, right? So let's say, for example, I didn't have Apartments of Houston. I wasn't doing anything else. Somehow I had a little bit of money and I had good credit. And let's say I want to go do spec homes. I wouldn't do it because because if I was to basically go out, leverage it out, the second I build that house on leverage, I immediately the clock starts ticking, and I have to sell it. And now I'm stuck. If I don't sell it, I'm in trouble. Right? So I never do that. I always believe it's something extra. It always adds to the pond. It always adds to the pool. So I think if you have a really good job, or if you have a business that's stable and you're growing, great. Go out and then learn how to leverage your business a little bit more, and it gives you a little pocket or a little space where you're able now to go out and do these other side projects that create large sums of cash that you can either reinvest back into those projects, back into your business, or back into your investment portfolio.
Now, when you say leverage your existing business, there's an old saying that I remember my dad used to tell me. He said, "Don't ever leave your wife for your mistress."
Yes.
Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I met a guy one time that he was a realtor, and he was making like $1 million a year as a realtor, but he wanted to get into the restaurant business, and so he actually left. He literally pulled himself out of doing real estate, and went all hog in on a restaurant. And so what happened is his real estate business went down, and then his restaurant actually failed.
That's gambling, yeah.
Yeah. So when you do this, I mean, obviously you're not going to let that happen. So you're going to have. Do you have some type of automation in place, or I mean, is it so?
It's the systems and processes.
Oh, the systems. Okay.
Training people. So, for example, I learned this. I think I was reading. It's Sam Wiley. It's called $1,000 an Idea. Sam Wiley is a local Texas billionaire. I don't know.
Yeah,
he has some,
I think he is. Yeah.
And one of the things that I always saw about Sam was able to build a software company. He built Michaels. He built Sterling Software, UCC Computing. He built Steak Bonanza, which is a major chain. So for me, it was always interesting. You see this entrepreneur go into 4 or 5 different spaces. He's able to build literally multi-billion-dollar companies doing it. But what was the core? And the core really was having great management teams in place. I think when he went into Steak Bonanza, he pulled out one of his old management guys. He says, "Hey, I know you're retired. I know you want to do something for fun. Come be the CEO of this company for me as we build it out. We'll back you with the capital." So I think it really is putting the right things in place. When he got Michaels, I think had, if I'm not mistaken, 6 locations when he got it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken either, I think he bought it on accident. He let somebody borrow some money, and then next thing he knew, he owned Michaels. And then he grew it to, I think, 1,200 or 1,500 locations whenever he sold that off.
Yeah.
But it's having the right management, the right tools, the right people in place. And I think that's critical. And then completely, you can't leave it alone. So that's why you have to have a really solid team.
Okay, so that's basically what the next chapter is for you. You're going to try this other endeavor. And are you looking at like multi-units, or or single family, or have you kind of thought through that, or?
For as far as building, it would just be homes.
Okay. Like in more like in the suburban area, or would it be like in the loop, or?
Yeah, and basically near the loop.
Okay. So you're maybe like a condos or townhomes.
Townhomes.
Okay,
for example,
townhomes.
I like townhomes. You really have to look at, as far as the land, what's around it, what's the use for it, and also really something I always look at, population density. It's something critical as far as in Houston when you look at it. Are things useful around it? In Mexico City, and I can see this two-perspective thing. I can walk out of my house within 2 minutes. I'm in a coffee shop, a restaurant, or a store.
Yeah.
I can't do that in Houston. I can do it in LA. I can sometimes do it in Miami. You can do it in New York, but you can't do it in Houston.
Okay.
So the question is, is the population density there for it? Right now, why are we going into townhomes? Because the price of land is getting so expensive inside the loop.
That's true. How long have you been in Houston for?
Born here, raised in Mexico City, came back around 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And I still go every year.
Okay, yeah. How far is Mexico City from Cancun?
Is it far? Yeah, you have to fly.
Is it far? Okay, I was just curious. Okay, so now one thing I'm just curious about, and do you have any like daily rituals, like any type of habits that you do like every single day? What are some of your daily rituals that you do?
So first thing when I wake up, for example, one of my big things, I used to always rush, go to the meeting, go do the thing, get into it, and then I realized that the energy you bring into it is completely off. It's completely haywire. So I think from the moment you wake up, it's how do you center yourself, think about, what's the one or two things that I can do today that'll have an impact in my business and my life. That's number one. Two is,
do you think that through? Or you write it down, or what are you doing something to?
Simple as meditating in the shower.
Okay.
It's because when you go to sleep, you wake up and your mind's fresh, right? Unless you're completely stressed out about something. And if you are thinking about, it might be something in personal life, in your business, your mind tends to gravitate, think about it over and over. And then you go, okay, stop, or what's the solution, or what can I do, or am I even in control of the situation? If I'm not, then okay, so be it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can change is, how do I feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that I basically tell people, do it every single morning. You have to. It's critical. You don't have to, but it changes everything. Two is never eat alone. You can. What I mean by that is, if you're eating with a friend.
Keith Ferrazzi,
yeah. And that's another one. So whenever I'm eating, it's I'm with that person. I'm doing that. Also study. What are your little things that you want to learn outside of for me, outside of apartment locating, outside of homes. What am I studying? Right now, I'm reading The Power Broker on the life of Robert Moses. Those are my little things that I do throughout the day. I have my little audiobook. It's playing. I stop. I leave it. And then more towards the night. It's, hey, did I check off and really do the things that were essential? Did I help out a client? Did I build a new relationship? And then
how much time do you spend? Because you say, man, you're talking about the book too, right? Never Eat Alone. That's what you're referring. Have you read the book?
I haven't read the book. I know the core. I know what you're talking.
Okay,
I know what book
Keith
you're talking
Ferrazzi
about.
wrote that book,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things he talks about. How much time? Do you or have you quantified how much time you spend a week, networking?
I haven't charted it.
Okay.
But just the way my lifestyle is, I know from the moment I walk out the door in the morning, I'm not coming home till nighttime.
Okay. But are you are you consciously trying to meet people?
No.
Okay.
And I stopped. I used to be very active in that sense, and I think you go through this as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson. You get to a point where you become very mechanical. You go to the networking event and let's say you go to Jet Lending, for example, or White Picket, whatever it is, and you see the one guy and he's walking around and he talks to 50 people. I admire that person, but you also realize that person's in a certain stage in their career where they're starting off. And I think you do have to do it when you need to. If you ever, let's say the business collapses, you have to start over. That's the grind that you have to go through, and that's completely acceptable. But to do that every single day, it'll burn you out. Mm-hmm. So I think more than a contact sport, I believe in depth. And what I mean by depth is, hey, I met one person, this person's really cool. I learned about their life, their needs, their wants, their dreams, their goals, and I've now built a relationship that I could see this guy 5 years from now, and that person's not my best friend, but I know them very well at an intimate level, and they're willing to either do business with me or referral, and I might change spaces. He might change spaces. But regardless, we stay in touch throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have more of those high-caliber relationships, not where, their finances and all that. I don't care about that. I care about who are they literally as a person. Mm-hmm. Because situations always change, right? I would rather build one of those, let's say a day or two a week, than to go out and meet 40, 50 people. Mm-hmm. Because I understand the 40, 50 people I meet are oh, yeah, that's Adam. Cool. Okay. So what? On the versus, oh, wow, that guy helped me out. Hey, he gave me a really good book. He did this for me, or vice versa. We had this crazy adventure. I had a flat tire. Whatever it was. I met him at a coffee shop one day. We were talking about Alan Watts and, the meaning of life in the universe. Whatever it is. But that person will always have that. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, I think he sells, apartments or real estate or whatever it is. Let me call him for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, the one last thing I wanted to kind of finish up with you on is, obviously, you're in Houston, I'm in Houston, and, investing, we just did a show on investing in Houston,
yes.
And our company is trying to track down multi-unit apartment deals.
Okay.
Anywhere from 2 to 10 million.
Okay.
And we're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have inside information, but, we're having a little hard time trying to find a good deal. And so what are your thoughts on, because my analysis tells me Houston will inevitably be the next LA within the next 10 to 20 years, and so there's just so much and from the the cost perspective, I mean, you look at, let's say that, for example, $100,000 a door for a nice apartment here, it's $500,000 a door in San Diego or whatever, $1 million a door. So what do you think from what are you seeing in Houston? I know you said that you mentioned earlier that rents are on the rise. From an investment standpoint for Houston in the next decade or so.
So one of the reasons I started reading Power Broker is to kind of see lessons of the past and see how Robert developed New York, all of that good stuff. And it's funny because as I'm reading that, I'm also seeing the similarities to Houston. Hey, we're putting it right now. I think we're having that thing where we're moving 59 and 288 and the whole thing. So we're seeing the redevelopment of that. We're finishing 99, and so in essence, it mirrors the history of other cities.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, something that's really starting to happen in Houston is the density is going up, and you might not notice it daily, but you start noticing throughout time. For example, if you're driving and that 30-minute drive turned into an hour, where'd all these people come from?
Yeah, I have the 2-mile rule, so that so I actually won't leave where I live and where I work, and everything I do is within 2 miles. So that's insane, man. I know it's. I used to drive an hour one way, and I anyone that can do that, I mean, you guys. I don't know how people can do it, but I know you're right. I mean, so go ahead. Yeah.
So from that standpoint, where do these people live? What are they going to need? So from a multifamily perspective, something that you're realizing is there's only so many homes inside the loop. There's only so many homes inside of Beltway 8. And you start seeing that, for example, right now there's a lot of development in Sunnyside, which was historically one of the worst neighborhoods in Houston. We had some projects out there. There's homes that are in the market for $180,000, $200,000 that were shanty homes 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In the multifamily space, what's really interesting is you have all of these, B and C complexes that were built inside the loop. Now, they're not in the best conditions that they should be because they were built 20, 30 years ago. But as the density goes up and as that demand goes up, the value of that property is going to go up. So people need to live somewhere. So if somebody's to come in, find the units at the right price, clean them out, make them livable, fix everything in there, then you have really a great investment because the cities, yes, we are expanding out, but you can only expand out so far. So now we're starting to contract, right? People are coming back in. Because, yes, it was awesome living in Sugarland and going to work every day because it was a 25-minute drive. But the second it turns, like you said, into an hour and a half drive, it doesn't make sense. It's, hey, I gotta move.
Yeah. No, that's one thing that, so with us, I mean, we're out here, and we're actually looking to go back inside the loop. And I used to live over there 12 years ago, and I rented a condo back then for like $1,200 a month. And that same condo is like $7,000 a month now. And I was like, it's crazy. So, I mean, I look at even houses for rent, like houses in Memorial Gallery are $15,000-$20,000 a month. Some of the houses I've seen, and it's crazy, man. And so, so you think that, I mean, that it's do you see that, or do you think about, do you see any type of recession or crash soon? Because we've been on a tear for a decade from real estate and stock market, and do you think about that? Or
I do. So I think one of the things that's unique about Houston is also our economy. The fact that we are in oil and gas, that we're so heavily invested into oil and gas, and the fact that oil and gas crashed. So going back to the baseline, this is the baseline of the city. The little bit of growth that we've seen in the last 10 years is basically new industries coming into the city. And that, so if there is a crash, I think particularly in Houston, it might be, 20, 25%, but it shouldn't go too crazy. The areas that would get impacted would be new development immediately, overnight. But I would say new development on the outskirts of the city. Because
But do you see anything from do you see anything from the global economy? Or I don't know if you take a look, like today they mentioned that, I don't know how, if you watch the bond market, but the yield curve is kind of flattened. And sometimes, if that goes inverted, that's kind of indicative of a recession. And so I don't know if you...
we're topping out. We're too high. You look at stocks historically, I think, was it the S&P hit 3-time highs in 1 week?
Yeah.
So it's going to happen next 12 to 18 months.
You think so?
But it's okay. It's part of it. It goes down and then it always goes balances out. So they're just market corrections.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
Okay. But you think that, I mean, your money's in Houston for the long run?
Yeah. If you're building out and you're doing it, yes.
Okay. Okay, cool, man. So, no, it's I'm actually really glad you came in today, man. I've learned a lot, and just you just you talking about these different things. Is there anything else that you wanted to add for the viewers that you wanted to kind of throw in as any bonuses or any?
Yeah, I think for those of you guys who are wanting to start a company, wanting to go out, and it might not be a company, be your own, say your own boss as an entrepreneur. Don't go gung ho. And what I mean by that is, it's yes, you do have to make a decision. Psychologically, you do this decision, but you have to map it out, put the things in place, and then execute them. A lot of times, I've done this. I've chased deals. There was a period in my life where for 2 or 3 years, I got this $500,000 deal. I got this $1 million, and I'd chase. And the next thing I know, I'm like, the deal fell apart. Where's my baseline? Well, where am I at?
But how would you? Okay, so how would you know that though? Like, are you saying don't chase a mirage or?
Yeah, because you have to have a foundation.
Okay.
So my biggest thing is always build a foundation.
Have a base. You're talking about a revenue stream, an income stream. Income producing asset.
Okay. So if you're at a job and you want to start a company, maybe you say, hey, I'm going to start my little rental home portfolio that I can rely on, I don't know, $2,000 a month in clean cash flow coming in. Mm-hmm. But you have that, and then you go, okay, now that I have this cash, now I can really spend the time. Let's go build this company, XYZ startup that you really want to do.
Okay. So you're saying because ultimately you do want to diversify, have multiple streams of income.
Yes. And more importantly, it's also how is the money being generated. I always believe in that.
You mean the source or the nature of it?
The nature. Not the nature. Is it being leveraged? So is it your money making money? Is it other people making money? Is it a service making money? And what I mean by that, sometimes it's not about how much money you make, because that's great. You can, let's say in network marketing, or a family that does that, you can make great income. But then we also know that the crash is going to come in 2 years, so you go from making $100,000 a month, you make nothing.
Uh-huh.
Right? And then did that person prepare for it? Did they go out? Did they create any other assets? Because overnight, boom, it's gone.
Right. I mean, you see that a lot with, I think, a lot of sports players, right? I mean, they make a crap load of money, and then they don't really diversify, and then they're broke. They file bankruptcy. Who was the guy that what was the guy, the rapper, 50 Cent? Didn't he file bankruptcy?
Yeah.
Did Kanye file bankruptcy? I don't know if he did. Somebody. It's crazy. I think the guy's made like $200-300 million, and I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You have to develop a base. Okay. No, I'm really glad that, like I said, you came out today. Hey guys, like I promised, we're giving away this brand new 10-inch iPad Samsung Galaxy. In order to win this, you had to follow the rules for signing up, and that was to follow us on our social media, and you have to answer the 4 key tenets of entrepreneurship by Adam. So put that in there. What are the 4 things that Adam said that it takes to be a successful entrepreneur? There's 4 things he mentioned, and if you answer those questions right, then you win this free iPad. Okay, so just answer those in there. We got people watching to make sure that you follow the rules, that you signed up. So type in there the 4 things that Adam mentioned. There was 4 things, right? Yeah, there's 4 things that Adam mentioned of what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Angelo,
for coming. It was very nice to meet you, and looking forward to maybe working with you one day.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right,
Likewise.
All right, guys. Later.
Take
Have a great
care,
weekend.
guys.